rank and serial number.
Sure. My name is Doug Stanton. I'm the author of 12 Strong. I'm really pleased to be here and thrilled with this film. It couldn't be a greater honor for a writer. Thank you.
Okay.
I am Nikolaj Fulsi. I'm the director of 12 Strong, and it is also a true honor to be here today. And I'm still pinching myself in the arm. I can't believe that I made it to here, but I'm deeply honored to be here. I'm really thankful.
Oh, wow. Trevante Rhodes, and equally honored to be here with the rest of these guys.
Jerry Bruckheimer, one of the producers. Thank you all for coming.
I'm never going to cut you off again.
That's okay. Anytime.
It's the last film I'll do with you. Chris Hemsworth, I play Captain Mitch Nelson.
I'm Molly Smith, one of the producers.
Thad Luckenbill, one of the producers, and also got the pleasure of playing one of these guys.
Jeff Stoltz, play Sean Coffers.
Navid Negahban, I'm playing General Dostum.
Okay, let's go ahead and open this up to questions. We've got a lot of good ones and a lot of good answers, I know. So we're going to start with the first person. And stand up. This will be better if everybody stands up, too.
Okay, hi. Jerome Maida, Philadelphia Voice. My question is for Chris, and if Doug or Jerry want to add on this, that's fine. Obviously, you're best known for playing a superhero. This is a great story about what I feel are true heroes, and I feel it's really important because in history of Hollywood, Apocalypse Now and Platoon, a lot of films haven't really shown the military in the best of light, especially the men. So was that part of the appeal of this film for you and how you wanted to play it? And do you feel that the military are heroes?
Absolutely, yeah. I did, as you say, I'd done a lot of stuff sort of in the comic book world and the fantasy-based sort of heroes and so on, and it was a lot of fun, but desperately wanted to do something with some real heart and something more grounded. And this script came along a few years ago. My first instinct was I was just couldn't believe it was a true story. I knew about this conflict and this war, like a lot of people, but not about this mission. And I was sort of engrossed and shocked and fascinated by the details. Then speaking with the real guys through the process, and there's just such an honesty and an openness and a lack of sort of, dramatization or ego or so on as they retell and recount these events, and such a humility, and as you say, they're the real heroes, and that, to put themselves in these positions in harm's way with their safety in jeopardy, but for the rest of our safety is something beyond admirable, something that is inspiring, and something that, I felt an honor to be asked to play this character and be part of this story, but, definitely felt the weight of that responsibility. I think we all did, and was very thankful that we had the real guys there. We had this amazing cast, crew, producer, we had Doug, this sort of resource of knowledge at our fingertips. So it was an incredible experience and one that I'll remember for a long, long time.
Right over there.
It's such a great story, and when you're watching these characters, they have such fearlessness, and they discuss in the movie the difference between a soldier and a warrior. For the actors, what do you feel is the responsibility for you to bring a real life take on these heroes and not just these people who are gung-ho on the warpath? So can you talk about the difference between soldiers, warriors, and the responsibility of showing this fearlessness in the realistic portrayal?
Yeah, but
for all the actors.
David, yeah, you guys want to?
You'll go after.
You were trusting. Go ahead, Trevante.
All right. Well, I think the difference between a warrior and a soldier is warriors lead with their heart, soldiers lead with their mind. And I think it's very valuable to lead with your heart, because that's, at least in my opinion, that's the only thing that's the most truest and most honest form of reaction in any way. So, most of the times when we think and lead with our mind, we make mistakes. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just an honor again to have the opportunity to embody somebody who I really feel is a warrior in the best light.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, come on, everybody.
Yeah.
Last time I ever cut you off, Chris.
No. I'm just going to try and repeat, all your knowledge. Anyway, there you go.
What makes this movie so fascinating, what they've done so brilliantly, is really that these guys, the Special Forces soldiers, the diplomats on the ground. And so when you think about this movie and go home, you want to think about World War II, actually, and people drop behind enemy lines to foment resistance. So therefore, the relationship that Chris has with Navid in the film is really a key central driving emotional point. And so the movie is both filled with action, as you saw, and also really tries to drive home the fact that this is America working at its best to create social change and using combat if necessary, but also using the power of the mind, as Trevante said. They're almost like Jedi Knights here, trying to do a mind meld with the culture that they're engaging with and being very respectful of it. So it's a very interesting, complex movie in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the way they were able to adapt and evolve and embed themselves within this world and work with the local people, not against them, working with them and fighting a common enemy, and the brotherhood they formed with the local Afghan people, but also amongst the soldiers, was something that kept coming up in amongst all of the guys I spoke to in this experience, and the relationships they still keep to this day with one another. Is as strong as any family bond I've ever had, and that was something that was always, again, inspiring and pretty evident with their approach and to why they did things.
Did any of you all research this with Rob Riggle, since he was a former Marine? I mean, he was maybe a go-to guy for some of these things, how to hold the weapons, or
we had not that Rob wouldn't be the perfect guy to go to. We had. Some of the real guys that this book was based on. We had military advisors there. One of the actual actors, Kenny Sheard, is a former Navy SEAL. So we had a lot of people with a lot of experience that we leaned on. By the end of it, everyone was, before we made a move or held a gun, we'd kind of turn to Kenny and he would go, yeah, you don't look right. So we had people there to make sure we didn't screw it up. And that was important to everybody, to the producers, to Jerry, when they developed this, to just be authentic and pay these guys the respect that they deserve and tell the story that it should be told.
I think.
Go ahead.
Please. I think one of the most important things for us was that, in my opinion, we had Mark Noche, Bob Pennington, and George Seeger, who was actually the guy on the ground. They were able to tell us exactly what was happening on the ground. And taking Doug's book and then the script and put all these elements together, we were able to discover the truth, what was exactly happening on the ground. And even some of the Afghans who helped us on the set, there were few of them, they were actually involved in that incident. They were there. There were soldiers who are right now refugees and they live in Albuquerque. And I think they really helped us by telling us exactly how they were feeling. And for me, it was crucial just to sit there and listen to them.
And it was great too, because Navid reached out to a lot of these communities, and he should get a lot of credit for that. It was great to have the real people there, authentic Afghans who knew it, just like we had authentic people teaching us how to, do the military stuff right. We had them as well, and thank you, Navid, for that.
My pleasure. No, one of the most important things was, because I think this is the first film that truly shows what Afghans went through, and how we united with them to achieve our goal. And the families that I talked to, some of them, they didn't want to be involved in the film. But when I told them what we are doing and what is this film about, the head of the families, they got together, and all of a sudden, we couldn't find any Afghan background or actor to work with us. And all of a sudden, we had about 400 people lined up, and everybody from Uzbek families, Tajik families, Hazara families, all of them, because the heads of the families, they were sitting, this older man, Mr. Sharifi, I think, was sitting there, and he was checking everybody in when they were coming in. and everybody would come, kiss his hand, and walk in and sign up for the movie. And we were really blessed to have them on the movie.
Great. Who's got the mic? You want to stand up so we can see you?
Okay then. Good morning. My name is Kathy with Bel Air Mommy, and I left last night with so many emotions. I was overwhelmed, and I actually didn't sleep at all last night because I had learned so much from the movie and from what these heroes truly did for our country by sacrificing their own lives. If there was one thing that you could say that a person can learn from it, or what they can walk away knowing from this movie, what is it that you could share? Because I'm definitely putting this down as a homeschool book for homeschooling, because everyone needs to know this story because it's real and it's raw. So if you could share with me what I can say, what you recommend, or what your point of view is, that would be great, please.
I think everyone should answer that too.
Sorry, man.
Sure.
I think when the moment that you there's an expression that says you can see the truth when you're blind and you can hear the truth when you're deaf. So if you put all the differences aside and look at the person as who the person is, then you will see how similar we are. And then you will discover our similarities, not our differences. And that's what the world is about. It's about us being the same. There's no difference except the color. Who cares? Go inside. What you find inside you is pure white. And there's no difference between the white that's inside me and anybody else who is sitting here. All of us we are the same.
Wow.
You can't follow that.
You can't. See what he said?
I'm just a lover, not a fighter.
Yeah, that's right. It's true. I don't know if this answers your question, but to me, this is the thing to take away from me, was that I think everybody that was old enough obviously remembers where they were at and the way they felt on 9/11. And this was. There are plenty of other stories. Even at this time, there are other operations happening. This one just happens to be written really, really well by Tug, and it really shows the story. But these are 12 guys that made what ended up, what could have been. They chose to make what could have been the ultimate sacrifice because of what they believed in, what they believed America stood for, and what they left their families behind. Some guys left their families behind, and they knew that there was a chance that some, if not all of them, wouldn't come back. And this is about a love for one another and a love for the ideal of what America is. And they believed that they were making a difference so that nothing like 9/11 would happen again.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of echo that. I think for me, what stands out most is the bravery of these guys. We, like you said, a lot of us in this room remember where we were and what we were thinking on 9/11, and just the fact that these guys were the first, essentially the first guys in, didn't really know how to do the job they were supposed to do, but they learned on the fly and they did it, without complaining. And I'm sure they complained a little bit, but they did it. They did it through bravery and patriotism and the right way, and that was really neat to portray.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many elements to this story, but I think something that we've seen people respond to when we've screened the film is the sacrifice. There's a line in the movie I love so much where it says, Michael Shannon says, "How do you love your family and leave them to go to war?" And I think that's such a poetic, beautiful line because, people do this every day and they make sacrifices for their country, for their, the camaraderie, the love. It's their duty. And I think we really tried to capture the spirit of the military, all branches of the military and soldiers in general, by showing some of the layers and complexities of the home life and their families. And then, of course, seeing the scope of what these guys went to go do. Because they felt a sense of duty and to fight for their country.
Something that I feel like a big thing that I took away from this experience, and this was definitely with the real guys themselves talking about how important it was for them, for their own survival first, when they first got there, to convince the local people they were fighting with, that they weren't there to occupy the country. They were there to chase the same enemy. And as Navid said, the local people that we had working with us from Afghanistan who were living in Albuquerque, a number of them came up and said, "Thank you for telling this story, because I was there, I fought with the Americans, but the whole world thinks I'm a terrorist." And he said, "I think it's so important that people know that we are on the same side, and the invading force is the Taliban, is Al Qaeda. They're the ones who are the infection that are coming in to take over and restructure the place." So yeah, as you say, a lot of them normally didn't want to be involved in films like this, but were sort of couldn't get there quick enough, and that meant a lot, I think, to all of us. And as I said, there was certainly something that the soldiers were very concerned with as well in this mission. I think that collaboration and the heart and the bond and the brotherhood they shared with them.
Yeah, I think that these men don't see themselves as heroes. They're just doing their job. That's what they're trained to do. They do it because they love their country, they love their families, and they're professionals. And they're highly trained, they're highly intelligent, and they're deadly. And the fact that they went into this country and bonded with the Afghan people, and you have to understand that there's so many different tribes, and they show it in the movie where they all fight amongst each other. And the fact that this group of 12 men got in there and got them all to work together against a common foe, which is so interesting. And it all comes down to our military and how well trained these men are. And they don't see it as sacrifice. They see it as something that's their job. That's what they're trained to do. And they're so good at it. And we're very fortunate that we could show their excellence in this movie. And thanks to Doug, who found this story. And I think you should tell him how you found the story, because this was classified. We would never know about this story had it not been for Doug digging in. And he ran into a soldier, started telling him about this classified mission that he couldn't talk about. And so that's so interesting. And this is just one mission. There's so many others that we know nothing about that they've done. And what happened right after 9/11 is President Bush went to his military and said, "We have to root out this evil. And how can we do it?" And the military advisor said, "Well, it's going to take us at least 6 months to put a force over there." And he said, "That is not acceptable. Tell me another way." And they went to, I guess, George Tenet, who was the head of the CIA at the time. And he went to one of his operatives, the CIA agent, and he said, "I want you to get in there." He put his hand on a map and he said, "I want these 5 provinces. I'm not going to ask any questions. Just get it done." And that was J.R. Seeger. And he went in there right after 9/11 with, I think, 7 guys. And he was the first group to go in. And quickly, I guess a week or 2 after that, is these 12 guys went in. So it just shows you what a small force can do and how good they are at their job.
I hope that people take away the identity that connectivity, love, camaraderie, brotherhood, sisterhood, just, I guess, basically to relay what everybody else was saying, just loving and being open and connecting with people and perspective and understanding. Because my understanding of what anybody, in all honesty, from the Middle East was after this event was anybody from the Middle East is bad, which is so ignorant. You know what I mean? So to have the opportunity to read this story and be a part of this story that shows the truth. And again, man, it's amazing. Thank you. And that's what I hope that people take away from the film. Yeah.
Nikolai, you have to.
I think in a way, it's to sum it up. I think it's also a homage to the human spirit. I mean, these both on the Afghan and on the American side, all these heroes were just ordinary people. And it could be your friend, your neighbor, and under extreme circumstances, they all rose to the extraordinary.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up that scene. How do you go to war and still love your family? I remember sitting in Bob Pennington's kitchen, and he gave me that line as I was interviewing him. And when I heard it in the movie, I got choked up, because really, in essence, this is a secret story that we're now telling about a part of our society that's been fighting now for 17 years. And in some ways, to walk away from this movie is to also be aware of your own communities and what's going on and the sacrifices these people are making. I think these guys succeeded because they weren't afraid to fail. And we talk so much about success in this country, which is great. But the reality is the SF, the Special Forces guys, are trained to learn how to fail. And if you go home to your homeschoolers, that is one thing that you could really take to them about what you can learn and to be adaptable and open to change. And, these sound like kind of abstract ideas, but the people that Travante and everyone else, and Chris and Jeff are playing, that's what they go to school on. So this is a completely different kind of take on the combat movie.
So where's the mic?
Right here.
Where we got? Okay, right over there. Your turn.
Yeah. Hola. Jose Torres, Estrellas en LA. Quick question. Chris, did you ever learn Spanish?
Sí.
Nice.
Next question.
Actually, I wanted to know about the strength and conditioning that y'all went through. It's a mile-high city. I wanted to know how bad your lungs were burning.
Walking up the hill, my lungs were burning. It was it's funny. We had these little gator trucks that would kind of be whipping people up and down the hill, and occasionally be like, it's cool, I'll run up there. And within like 3 steps, the mountain's like this, you've got all your gear on and the altitude, and it was like, bring the truck back. So yeah, we're incredible, peak condition. Couldn't walk up the hill. Now we did, 3-4 weeks of military training, weapons training. And for me, that was the most important thing from that was more the sort of chemistry and bonds that we formed. I mean, obviously the sort of technical side of things was an absolute must, but, it's tricky to fake that sort of the connective tissue that links all the exposition and so on at times together. And, all the little kind of moments and jokes and beats in between the bigger scenes was just because of the contribution of all the guys and our friendship that we'd formed in that training. So.
Awesome.
You talk about military training, but that usually doesn't include horses.
No.
How was all that? I mean, you all were really riding, right? That was...
Yeah, there were no stunt men at all, actually.
We do all
the time. Pictures the first week that we were rehearsing. I used to ride horses, so I said, okay, I go there. I forgot how old I am, so I went back on the horse. And the very first week, I never forget, I was riding, then it went into a gallop, and my trainer was telling me, don't gallop, I'm turning around to talk to him, and all of a sudden the horse is up in the air, jumping over the bush. I didn't know what to do. I came back, and that was it. For 2 weeks, I was walking like this. But when we were shooting the movie, the guys, they had to help me to get off the horse and on the horse. It was good. It was good. It was good training.
Angela?
Okay. I couldn't help thinking of Lawrence of Arabia watching this, particularly because of the bond between General Dodson and Mitch Nelson, but of course also the beautiful scenic vistas and the desert and all that. And I was just wondering for Nicolau, shooting this and getting those spectacular widescreen cool shots. I mean, how was that for you? And for you guys being out there in the desert, you talked a little bit about the altitude, but can you talk a little bit about working in that kind of cruel environment?
It was always important for me to try and portray Afghanistan in the most accurate way. And we've seen so many movies that try and get the terrain right, and I really feel we did it. We really took pains to go to very remote areas. I think the landscape is a huge character in the movie also, and it was important that we sort of brought all the elements together and sort of immersed ourselves in that environment. And I wanted all the composition, the lensing to be like an epic war painting. Every frame, should have like hostile, barren, cold, no comfort, So it was important that the viewer felt instantly sort of hostile, uncomfortable in these environments. And I think we did really well with it, yeah.
We felt it too. Yeah. It was important that you made us. That was great.
I think it made a difference, a huge difference.
It did, yeah. I mean, having all the sort of, everything's on fire, the bombs, the noises, the smoke, and so on. More smoke, smoke. That was the common, thing that Nicolau would be yelling. More fire. And we'd be like, no, less, we can't see. But it just, you don't have to act at that point. You're reacting to the environment in the most authentic way.
I think you might have no more potential harsh critic in the audience than me. I know some of you on the cast there. I'm a professor of Islamic history at UMass Dartmouth, and I lived and breathed the story for 15 years. I spent 2 months living with Dostum, 2 summers in Afghanistan, and J.R. Seeger was my boss at the C.I.A. when I worked there. I researched the story for my book, The Last Warlord, which tells the other half, and you did too. I mean, this movie should be plotted from the Muslim perspective. You gave the Muslims the other half of the story. You mentioned Omar Sharif to Lawrence of Arabia, and certainly Navid was a very complex character who, in many ways, was very compelling. My friend Martin Rich, you played Chris, you did a wonderful job. He's more straightforward. But Nikolai, too, you brought the Muslim fabric to life, the human terrain as well as the geographic terrain. So I saw the movie, and I was almost in tears, having lived and breathed on the ground there and seen the shrine and historicized it. And I ran out and I called General Dostum on the phone. And I spoke to him and I used one word for it, gairat, honor. They honored you, they honored Muslims, and in a climate where people like Trump are trying to divide us against Muslims and paint them in broad brushstrokes, this movie and Navid's portrayal, a very nuanced portrayal of a very complex character, really breathed Muslims to life. And I think shows them not as stereotypical enemies, but as our key allies. And everybody on the cast should be credited for that. But especially Navid, I think, who came in and shows us we do have Muslim heroes who fight in the front lines. They're the ones in Mosul or Mazar Sharif fighting. So many thanks for that. And I can't thank you all enough for the Muslim aspect. And I wish, Navid, if you could probably ask me a question. What was it like? Dostum's alive today. He's vice president. He's a very complex character. He's not black or white. He's gray. What was it like fleshing out such an amazing character? And I know, Jerry, he sent you a letter personally telling you you can use his name and please bring him to life. And on behalf of all the Uzbeks in Afghanistan and all Afghans, thank you very much. Tashakkur, Nabi.
Actually, real quick, guys, you got all you guys write that down.
No, actually, Brian was very helpful because when I came in, I wasn't that familiar. I didn't know who General Dostum was or is. And his book is a biographical book about Dostum. So it's the different side of this story. And I had to, I used that to have an understanding, and Brian really helped me to understand Dostum. And also Mr. Irfani, Ayub Irfani, who flew in from Afghanistan. He's, I think, General Dostum's ambassador. And he flew in and he brought us some of the gear that actually Dostum wore and some of the stuff that they used. And he came and brought me pictures and told me stories. I'm grateful to both of them. Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you. I appreciate it.
We only have time for one more question.
Hi, everybody. I'm just wondering, I know this was a declassified mission, but I'm curious if the levels of classified information maybe that you got into were ever closed off at any point. Have names been changed for like fear of retaliation or anything like that, of that matter?
Doug, you should answer.
Yes, when I was composing the book, I started in 2003, just shortly after the action of the mission, and the guys asked me to provide pseudonyms. So sometimes you'll see that in the book. But, I fast forward to 2011, we're walking down Fifth Avenue with the same cohort of soldiers behind the horse soldier statue at its dedication. And so the world has changed in that regard.
Molly, why don't you close us out?
I'm thrilled to hear a lot of the complex questions here because it kind of shows what the film is. It's not just your typical military, action flick. It's so much more than that. It's, it's a story of bravery. It's a story of camaraderie. It's a story of brotherhood in a very unique way. And, we were so honored to tell this story. And Jerry always finds the most interesting stories. And I think most of his stories are usually about exactly what he said, the triumph of the human spirit. And I love that we were able to portray that. And I'm so honored to sit up here with this incredible cast. And thank you so much.
Thank you all so much, of course. This movie, 12 Strong, opens January 19th. Best of luck to you guys. Thank you all for everything. And get in the book. There's a lot more in the book.